Well, hello and welcome. Thanks for joining us for this week's panel conversation about the conversation with government leaders on how do you maintain a sense of community in the socially distanced world. We've got a great panel. We have two local government professionals from Texas who are here to share their ideas and their perspectives on what they're doing in dealing with the challenges that are confronting communities in a whole variety of ways. The intent of these conversations is really to just simply gather ideas and perspectives from local government leaders and then share them with other folks who are confronting the same kind of challenges. We have found that this has been a really helpful way to just share ideas, learn from others, and we're hoping that you can take away a perspective or an idea, something that's going to benefit your community going forward. The way that this session works is I'll introduce our panelists, and then we will queue up the topics and go through the question and answer process. And then when we're finished with that, I will wrap up for just some final comments. And generally, these sessions last for a little bit less than an hour, but looking forward to going through today's conversation. So let me do this. Let me introduce our panelists today. Our first panelist is Wes Pearson, who was appointed as the Addison, Texas city manager in 2015. Wes has also served for the city of Corpus Christi and Allen, Texas, prior to coming to Addison. Wes is active with ICMA and has served on numerous ICMA committees, including being a project leader on their strategic planning process. He's got a bachelor's degree from Brigham Young and has a master's degree from George Mason University. He's also studied public finance at the University of Texas and has gone through the Weldon Cooper Center for Public Service at the University of Virginia. Wes is an active alumni with his alma mater and loves their sports. He's also passionate about learning, service excellence, and getting things done. Wes, thanks so much for being part of the conversation today, and I would welcome you to sharing a little bit more about yourself.
Thanks, Matt. It's a pleasure to be here. When I did work for ICMA, I got to work with people like Matt and Clay, and both of you guys were part of the inspiration for me becoming a city manager. So I'm honored to be here and to be participating and to help provide a perspective about what we in Addison do to engage our community and try to keep the sense of community even when it's harder to get together.
That's great, Wes. Thanks so much. Let me introduce our second panelist, Clay Pearson. We have the panelists of the Pearsons today. Clay is the city manager in Pearland, Texas, and has been there since 2014. Prior to that, Clay served as a city manager in Novi, Michigan, and I always loved when I was a city manager, I was kind of monitoring what Clay was doing in Novi because they were always kind of those innovative, cutting-edge leaders in local government, and I'm sure he's doing the same thing in Pearland. Clay is also very active with ICMA and currently chairs its international committee, which holds a special place in my heart since I used to be a chairperson for that committee. What's really cool, though, is that Clay has taken it even further by sharing his expertise and talent in doing some teaching in China and also work in Australia and South Africa. Clay is also very active with performance measurement issues and has helped ICMA in the past with those topics. Clay is also on the board of directors for the Alliance for Innovation, which is a great group for municipal organizations, and he serves on the Swedish American Chamber of Commerce in Houston. He's an active alumni with the University of Kansas, where he received his master's degree in public administration. Clay, I really appreciate you finding some time to participate in this panel conversation, and would welcome for you to share a little bit more about yourself.
Thanks, Matt. And like Wes said, it's fun to be with you. I've enjoyed, that's one of the great things about this profession and this work is the people that we get to serve alongside and get to know over the years in different formats. And you're both amongst the top of that. And so, I've enjoyed my time in Pearland and my career in public service here in local government. I really think it's a fun and challenging environment. The COVID times have tripled down on that in terms of the challenges. And, I'm looking forward to learning from Wes and you about what y'all are doing and how we can leverage that moving forward. One correction, clarification. I'm actually a friend of the International Committee now. I got rotated out, and so it's I still appreciate that international perspective and work, and but I'm no longer formally on the committee. So, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that, Clay. I got to say that one of the nice things about having both of you on this panel is I know both of you well and hold you in the highest regard, and really appreciate the leadership that you have shared with with just generally with the profession, and certainly leadership within ICMA. So thanks for that, and makes it even more special that you are part of the conversation today. So let's kind of get into the conversation. We're going to be talking about maintaining a sense of community in a socially distanced world. And kind of the backdrop of this is, COVID has just simply disrupted everybody's life in so many different ways. And given that unsettled environment, what do communities do to maintain that connection with residents on things that are happening on a daily basis that are impacting people's lives? There's just such an importance in maintaining an authentic connection with residents so that they feel like their voices are being heard and they have some kind of input on things that are impacting the investment that they have made in the community in whatever way or however they actually define it. The pandemic kind of presents a unique set of circumstances. And so we're really interested in getting your perspectives on what you have done to keep that connection with your residents. As a little bit of a backdrop, before COVID, flashback a couple of years ago, engagement was always hard and has always been hard, just kind of given the way local government is structured, when meetings are scheduled, the intimidation factor of getting up in front of a public body. So engagement has never been easy. And COVID and all of the other issues over the past year have just simply complicated things. I mean, think about all the changes that you guys have done in your organization to now operate virtually while still delivering public services, the meetings being held virtually and trying to connect with residents that way. And on the personal side, residents are home trying to maintain a job while they're homeschooling their kids and all of the aspects that are impacting them locally and personally. And so the initial issues and challenges of being engaged only get more complicated with with COVID and the pandemic and all of the other aspects. And so the importance of having this conversation is really about the process of learning. How do you go about building engagement? Because I think everybody appreciates that it is a very important aspect of local government and in managing a community and providing leadership in a community. Anecdotally, I will share with you that the conversations in the past on these panels, and maybe hopefully you guys can address this, the virtual world has actually resulted in an increase in engagement, and people are now plugging in just because it's a little easier as councils and communities are operating virtually. It's actually been a little bit of a positive because it has provided people that opportunity to connect in a little bit easier. And so I'll be interested in your perspectives around that topic. So let's kick into the question. We're going to be asking 3 questions today. The first one is, how has your communications and engagement strategy evolved since the beginning of the pandemic? Second one is, how does engagement influence your success in maintaining or building that sense of community in your location? And then finally, what tools are you using to help get resident feedback and from a resident's perspective during these challenging times? So I tell you what, let's kick off with the first question. And Wes, I'm going to start with you. How has Addison's engagement strategy evolved since the start of the pandemic?
Well, I think we've had to, it's an interesting question for us because we're in a community that's very unique, and in that we have a different set of residents, meaning we've got single family folks and a lot of apartment folks, and they're all higher end. So you've got different types of ways people engage and communicate with one another. You've got different levels of attention that's being paid. by just our residents. But then we've got in our residential, our population is just about 16,000 people, but we've got a corporate base of businesses and then people who visit because they're either doing business or coming here for fun. That is very different as well. And, our daytime population pre-COVID was, anywhere between 100 and 150,000 people a day. So it's very, very unique types of people we've had to pre-COVID had to communicate with. And now with the pandemic, we've had to evolve with how we've communicated with the corporate and visitor community, because obviously some people are working from home. A lot of people are working from home. Folks are still visiting restaurants, but not as much, or in different ways. Instead of staying at restaurants, they're coming and taking food home or something like that. So just their behavior, we've had to evolve to meet and adapt that on the corporate visitor side. And then on the residential side, what we've had to do is we've had very high expectations already from our residents about communication. And we've just had to, I think, adjust more, understanding how difficult it is for them. We know, we can say we know that because we ourselves are experiencing it in our personal lives, right? And so, but being able to understand how hard this all is, and then showing empathy, and when we communicate, being empathetic, but then also over communicating. We've always tried to be reasonable in that. I think we've communicated more now than I think we probably ever have in my whole time here, which is saying a lot. But our team is phenomenal, and they've done a really good job. So it's really kind of just being able to read the situation and adjust so that we're meeting the needs of people and trying to meet our needs as well, to be able to inform people about what's going on so that they feel like they have a place to connect and engage to.
Wes, is your council still meeting virtually, and how would you react or respond to the point I brought up earlier about the levels of engagement right now?
Yeah, the council, our council met virtually probably for about 4 or 5 months, and then once they felt comfortable, we met in person, but making space. We actually no longer meet in our typical council chambers. We're meeting in another public space so that everybody can physically distance, and we can accommodate people who want to come from the public as well. So we've changed that way. And then as far as engagement at council meetings, I think it's probably it's less at the actual meeting than it probably was before. But I would say it's probably equal to or more than in other forms of communication. So more emails, more social media outreach, both to the town specifically, but then the council members or the town generally, and the council members specifically. So I think that's one of the things that we've noticed in how people are communicating and engaging.
And just finally, Wes, do you have any tips for others about things that you've done to engage with your corporate population in terms of just kind of helping business leaders and business owners engage more?
Yeah, just do it. That's I think a lot when we talk about engagement, a lot of us focus on our residents, and we have corporate residents, and so we don't forget about them. And they've got a lot on their plates, so we're trying to make sure that they know we're here and available to help. We are communicating with them. We're not expecting them to communicate unless they need something. It was nice to see some of that, groundwork pay off. In February, as many people know, Texas had some pretty intense winter weather, and we were able to have good communication from our corporate community because of the foundation we had laid before. But just doing it is, I think, the main thing, and being intentional about it. Don't do it as an afterthought.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I forgot about the storm. I'm sure you haven't forgotten about the storm. I'm in Minnesota. We have storms all the time. So.
Yeah.
Hey, Clay, could you talk about how your communication and engagement strategy has evolved over the course of the last year?
Right. So, for 30 years I've been doing this. I started in the City of Elgin communications world, and that's been passion and interest because I just believe it's so fundamental to success. And everything that we've been doing, we have to do more of, and that's what Wes said. And the other thing that I agree is where he said that when you talk about communication with the community, which community? Because there is you can't. It's not one mass. I mean, there's different age groups, there's different interest levels, there's different backgrounds, and so your communication strategy has to be scattered shot to try to do all of that. We've got a great communications team. We've integrated them even more and added to that as we are able. The video has been our go-to platform. Frankly, I still ask them like what we're doing on the website, and I think they laugh behind my back that that's very old school. I just see it as a platform from which other things can be launched, but realistically, I'm kind of getting it that we're out there doing different segments. We're very fortunate now that we've got a mayor who's very adept and communicates well and is interested in that. So again, with the winter storm, he jumped in, was our front person, and our video team was able to work with that and really message daily as that was going on. And he did the same thing during COVID, and that's really been well received. And that's probably a more universal platform for all those different audiences, whether it's, I've heard from business community, I've heard from people different parts of town, ages, et cetera. And the other thing I want to give snaps to in terms of communication engagement is our Parks Department. They have been fantastic throughout COVID. They've adapted, I'm not going to say pivoted, but they've adapted their programs and how they've been offered, because everything they were doing, it had to change. And I think about our older adult services and how, their facility closed, but they were doing curbside handouts. They were doing conversations. They were, we did not on the older adult community, but our Parks Department did these outdoor cinemas, with reservations only. When they were able to, they've shifted the recreation center and our pool program so that you could still come, but you had to register, limited numbers, et cetera, et cetera. So they've been really at the forefront of our continuing our engagement work. And then again, as Wes alluded to, we're into constant emergency management with weather and climate and COVID, and those platforms and those habits have been very effective. We use them all the time, and one day we're doing a COVID message. We're running our own city vaccination. We've given out 17,000 shots from the city, and that's been very well received in that communication effort. And so we're using Everbridge as a platform to communicate out, and that's been very good as a broadcast. We supplement that with emails, and it's just it's very integrated into our lives now. And so it's draining in a lot of ways, but it's also necessary. And when you get a chance to rest and think about it, it's invigorating all the good things we've gotten done.
Yeah, no, that's great. Can you talk a little bit, just kind of high level, if I was another local government official, I wanted to learn or just kind of get a perspective on how you are doing your video work around this topic? Is there a high level summary that you can provide?
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that exactly, because I think it's getting a team that's adept at that and can add the it's not just putting a camera out there, right? I mean, they're able. We do this. We started this now weekly video series after a council meeting. We profile 3 issues. So I'll use that as an example. They tape that. They write a nice tight script It's got to be short and crisp. If it goes 5 minutes, it's too long. And we work on the script together, and, it's not a huge effort, but then they record that and they make it fun and engaging, and it's very, very well received. But the other aspect is what they're able to layer on with the graphics and to keep people's interest. It's not just sitting in a studio and recording it. It's more of a news kind of thing, a fun sort of thing. I'm not going to say it's as good as a Stephen Colbert show, but that kind of a flavor, or those animations and the graphics at a high level. I guess that's how I can answer, is that we have people that know how to do that and can do that and produce that quickly and get it out there. So it's quantity, it's quality, and it's consistency is what we're doing.
Yeah, I think that's a really great approach, though, that a lot of communities will benefit from hearing. Just because you're right, it is more of a universal platform and provides that succinct messaging on things that are most important to people.
Yeah, and when you say universal, to me, that's the modern web page, because they can put it onto a Facebook. I don't do Instagram, but at least they put it on Twitter. So they do the links on there. So those different platforms, wherever people are, we try to meet them. And that video is flexible enough to put onto those different places where people are watching.
Yeah. Thanks, Clay. Clay, let's stay with you. Can you talk a little bit about how do you think engagement in your community plays into maintaining a sense of community?
So, I think they're interrelated, right? I think if people have a sense of community, they're engaged. I don't know that, I haven't thought about this deeply, but I don't know that engagement brings the sense of community. They go together. So I guess I'd say I'm more interested in building that sense of community, that we have events and activities and opportunities for people to meet and to participate and to volunteer, whatever they want to do, whether it's a youth program or, fun run or whatever it is, or a police academy sort of thing. We have a citizens academy, very, very popular, so whatever they want to do. And then once we have that engagement, then we can talk about, the fostering other kinds of opportunities and use that as a platform to talk about other venues, if that makes sense.
Yep, it does. People want to be part of a winning team. And when you've got a lot of activities and fun things going on, people generally resonate to that. Is your Citizens Academy, is that focused on overall government operations?
So that one is police, and we've introduced some fire elements. So I'd call it a public safety, but that's what people want. And, the chamber does some of a larger community academy. And so that was here long before I've been here, and, that's got its own wheels and it's been run very well.
Okay. Thank you. Wes, how does engagement play into your success in maintaining a sense of community in Addison?
I think Clay is spot on. What's important is the community, is building that sense of community. And once you've built that sense of community, then the engagement happens naturally. And so I guess the challenge is with people being so busy, is how do you create that sense of community? I think that, and this may be a little bit too philosophical for this, but that starts with, neighbors talking to one another. It starts with neighborhoods, working together. It starts with that. And we want to be helpful in trying to provide the venues where people can have the opportunity to, or have not the opportunity, but additional opportunities to build that sense of community. So, we have always done a lot of special events in Addison, harder to do in a pandemic, but we didn't stop doing them. We did alter them so that we could still create a place where people could come out and at least see, one another. what we wanted to do is try to contribute to the idea that, this is tough, but it's going to be okay. I think Paul Harvey said it best, right? It's times like these that remind us that there's always been times like these, and so, we wanted to kind of be helpful in saying, we're going to be okay. This is hard right now, but let's not lose that sense of community. And then once again, in my opinion, once you have that sense of community, then the engagement is a lot easier. And I think sometimes we may lose track of that. We may focus on the fact that we may be very effective in communicating with a tool, but it may not be really contributing to that building of the sense of community. So I don't have a perfect answer about how to build that sense of community, but I think that's really where the focus needs to be.
Hey, Matt,
you spend much time.
I was going to say, I know you said not to crosstalk, but I think what Wes said makes all the sense in the world, and it's not just the city. I don't think we can be arrogant to say that we are the end all beat all. I mean, people are more engaged with their schools and their neighborhoods, and if we can be a part of that, or a participant or a supporter of that, that's our sweet spot. So, when we're at our best, those partnerships are working right, and the business community, et cetera, whatever the community is and where they are, that's where we need to be. And I would hope that we don't think we at the city level have to be. I think cities think they're the hubs, but if we're a spoke on stuff, I'm happy too. So,
Wes, are you spending a lot of time working and focused on the neighborhood levels, so you're building the strength of your neighborhoods?
That's an interesting question. I think we're not necessarily. We're not. If you're asking if we're the ones building the sense of community, no, we're not. We're the ones being supportive to those who are building that sense of community. That's a more accurate reflection, because I do think in Addison, people are they are doing that, and we're trying to, again, like I said earlier, we're trying to be helpful. So whether it's Rotary groups or schools, like Clay said, churches, anything that where people are trying to come together, we want to be helpful in that. And so whatever we can do to help what they're doing is what we kind of view as our, and I think as Clay said, at our sweet spot. And so it's really important though that we understand, and I like that the reference to arrogance. We can't be arrogant and think that we're going to drive that, because that's really more of a something that works best when it happens at an organic level below, where we are even.
Yeah, that's great. And I appreciate you guys bringing that up, because from my experience and my perspective, I think you're thinking about it right. The communities are in support of everything else going on in the community that helps to create that sense of community. So I think you're spot on with those perspectives. Wes, let's stay with you and kick into the third question. Wes, can you talk about the tools that Addison is using to help measure feedback from a resident's perspective and business perspective, for that matter, that helps you kind of understand where you're at during this pandemic?
Yeah, we use everything possible. Snail mail, we use email, we use social media. We use everything that is possible. We use Everbridge, as Clay mentioned earlier. We use everything that we think is going to be effective. We give people options to choose from. And then based on utilizing all that, we learn what's most effective. What are people paying attention to? What are people not paying attention to, so that we can be more effective with the use of our tools. And sometimes, I guess I want to say this, because I mentioned earlier that I personally, I don't spend a lot of time on social media. We do a really good job of that as a town, but there's in my opinion, there's sometimes a potential to get caught up in the tools and not not pay attention to the fact that we're actually serving real live people. And so sometimes, we need to pick up a phone, and sometimes we need to go knock on a door, and sometimes those human interactions need to happen, and probably more often than we think. And sometimes I think our world is kind of, and this again maybe a little bit too philosophical for this, but our world is kind of being, the reality of our world might be being bent a little bit away from, in my opinion, reality, because people rely on the tools and they don't sometimes go out and talk to their neighbor. They'll say something on social media instead. And that kind of, goes off and has a life of its own. And it turns into something that it doesn't necessarily need to be, when if people just were able to connect on a more human level instead of an electronic level, things would be more effective. So we use them all, but we want to make sure that we're not relying on them to be and the measurements are all good, but we don't want to rely on them to be our human connection with other humans. We want to make sure that they are a tool that helps us augment that human connection, which in my opinion is what's really going to help build that sense of community.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Do you have a established strategic plan that guides your decision making? And,
yes.
And do you have performance? Talk a little bit about the performance metrics that you have in place for helping you, which seems to be even more important now as you're kind of in COVID recovery mode.
Yeah. So what we've done for a while, we have a council strategic plan. They have identified priority pillars and then milestones that help identify when we're meeting, with the progress we're making towards those pillars. One of the things that I use as the city manager is I have 100-day plans. And so every 100 days, I'm creating a priority list of things that we need to get done that is in alignment with those milestones, the council milestones and pillars. And those are then assigned to our departments. And they're, interdepartmental a lot of times. And so everybody's working on that. And then at the end of the 100 days, I provide a status update to all of to the council, to all of our directors. Our employees get to see it. And so you get to see, all right, this is our plan for this 100-day period, and this is how we did on it. And so while we may not be talking about, every park has 1/8 an inch long grass, or, whatever it is, whatever the metrics is, we are measuring what we're doing and communicating what progress we're making, so that people know, hey, look, here are the council's priorities, and this is how we're getting stuff done. And I'll tell you what, I'm incredibly blessed to have an amazing team that I just started my 20th 100-day plan period in Addison. And the things that they've accomplished in 100-day periods is amazing.
That's very cool, Wes. I love the 100-day planning process. I don't think there's probably a lot of communities that are doing that, but that really helps to keep your strategic plan alive. Do you communicate out to the public the results of your 100 days, or is it more on an annualized basis?
I don't do that enough. I could do a better job of that. But because maybe I'm thinking, because we do it to the council and all the employees know we're doing enough. Plus, it's really cool for people to come and see, without seeing those plans, they come to us, and they being the residents, whether it's, people that live in Addison or people work and play, people come to us and, say, wow, you guys are really doing a lot of stuff. And they commented on them. So I guess we could be more intentional with sharing that. And I think that's a good idea. But we haven't done it yet.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that. That's a great approach.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah. Sorry. I was going to say something else, but I can't remember what it was now.
Clay, what tools are you using for helping guide getting feedback from your residents during the last year?
So I think the multiple platforms and the digital nature of it makes it incredibly hard. So I don't know how marketing people in the private sector really do what they do with what I've seen so far in terms of the lack of really quantifiable, accurate information. Meaning, we put videos up on, YouTube, and the quote unquote, the counts on that, it's so inaccurate in terms of, what that is. And our communications people say, well, if you look at it through this platform or it goes through this, it doesn't get counted and all that stuff. People are seeing it because they talk about it. So in terms of trying to quantify the digital stuff, I think that's still a work in progress for the world, as far as I can tell. I'm sure we could hire somebody to pay them a lot of money to help do that, but I don't know if that'd be worth it or how accurate that'd be. So we're putting a lot of stuff out there. And to be honest, it's not what you would traditionally say in the management world that, we can say the return on investment from this versus that. I think that's really hard from what I've seen so far. We do the community surveys, and I think that's a great, process. And, we did that with National Citizen Survey and now Polco. So that's, that's very important for us. The challenge is for us that, at least in our situation, we do that every other year. And so that's a big gap. And now I know there's some products in there, and I'm excited about to do more shorter, quicker, interim sorts of measures and things to measure sentiment. And I'm excited about that and what that could do to us to give reality check. Wes talked about the council meetings. We went virtual as well. And I think the quantity may have been a little bit less. It's never been huge, but I would say that our overall engagement is higher just because of everything else that's been going on and people having those other means and us, being accessible digitally. And I'm going to riff off what Wes said too about, the high touch necessity. I get a kick out of people say that the city should be more accessible. Well, you can pick up the phone and call us pretty well. I try to call my credit card company or the airlines. They do everything possible to keep you away from a human being. And, we're talking about, trying to do some artificial intelligence maybe for some inquiries, and there's a place for that. But I worry we would lose a lot of that, empathy and really understanding what people are trying to do and creating a high frustration level if we went to a chatbot model versus call up and that. So I'm interested in working on a call center. I don't know if 311 is still the way things go for that, but I think we need to improve because the city is so diverse in what we offer, our services. And it's very hard for us internally to get things to the right place for the right answers. And so I'm interested in a centralized way for that we can service that, but I'll be resisting too much, Alexa answering people's questions and seeing what we can do to help keep that service level up and try to keep that going.
Yeah, well said. You have had, thanks for sharing that your engagement levels have gone up. You've had so many kind of interesting dynamics over the last several years. Our research that we've done has actually kind of demonstrated a couple of things, that engagement levels are up and that the trust in local government has actually increased, kind of given, especially during the pandemic, just because I think people are looking to their local governments for guidance and help and advice and information. Do you, given all of the things that you have been going through, one, how do you react to that statement? And then secondly, are you doing anything unique in terms of just making sure that people have confidence and maintain that trust in terms of just all of the really dynamic things that your community has gone through over the last several years?
So I'll try to stay away from the cliches, but I think the performance that we've offered through all of the things you've alluded to, everything from Hurricane Harvey to the multiple hurricanes last year that threatened but necessarily didn't hit us, to the winter weather that hit all of Texas, February 15th, to the George Floyd entombment, to, just the national backdrop to the pandemic. I mean, we've delivered the goods, and I think people do trust us in the community, and they know we deliver the goods, and we're there when we need them. That's one of the things about, like a Harvey, it's searing from a lot of standpoints, but we were cut off. I mean, and everybody else was, and it was so big that there wasn't mutual aid that was coming from anywhere. And so we are, one of the interesting things that we're working on in this after action report from the winter storm is how do we balance self-reliance with cooperation and partnerships, because you need both. And, maybe there's going to be a matrix or something that helps us to frame that. But, we need to be self-reliant. We're talking about building a supply depot for water and, other kinds of things. But we also can't do everything ourselves forever. And so we've got to have the partnerships from the counties and other things. And my last thing, I got to get a jab in on state government. And, the Transportation Secretary Budig was talking about, which I would agree with this last stimulus package that's going directly to the cities and counties, no state middleman interference where they skim off money and take their own, cut of the money. But he said, people talk about state and local government as if they're the same thing, but they're not. And, we need to recognize that in the federal government under, what he's talking about, at least not to get political, but, they're giving direct monies to the cities. And I think that's a great opportunity. We need to show our stuff and communicate that, and not let any one-off problems that come from that dominate the cycle. But people understand local government better than they do the rest of it. They can access it. And so we need to, it's an internal thing we've been a part of on this call for 30 years, whatever. But, it's, local government gets as accountable. We're here. And we're the dumping grounds for everything that needs to be done, and we still get it done. And that's one of our eternal sort of crosses to bear, I guess. That's an Easter reference. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, Clay.
Yeah, thanks, Clay. That was very well said. Well, thanks for your responses, guys. It's that just great perspectives that were shared. You guys know each other, but do you have any questions for each other? Just kind of given what you heard, or any follow-up comments on anything?
If I could, Wes, I was with John Baumgartner's the manager of League City, and he spent time up in your neck of the woods, and he was giving me a little flavor of his experience there. He didn't know we were talking, but he just very, complimentary of everything that was going on up in your area, and so this has been good. COVID's, we haven't had the conferences and been able to talk to each other directly, but I'm looking forward to getting back to that and learning, and so I can try to keep up with Wes, the better Pearson.
I wouldn't say better, but I do spell it right. That's what I would say. I'm teasing, obviously. Clay's such a good thinker, and he's got great ideas, and I just got a couple from him today. The one that I'm really interested in learning more about is how you profile those 3 issues after council meetings. That sounds pretty interesting to me. But I'm just grateful that we have one another to be able to reach out to and learn from. And we have the great thing about local governments are that each community is so different, and the same issue is so different in each of our communities that we have we have the opportunity to have different perspectives and then share those with one another. And I've been very blessed in my local government experience. I can't say that I'm near 30 years yet, but I've been able to be around people like you, Clay, and Matt, and others that have just been so gracious with their knowledge and their experience and sharing that. So I hope we will always continue to do that, because we got, like you say, Clay, we've got to get stuff done, and we've got to be the ones that build the trust necessary to keep the institution of local government seen as something that is reliable. So,
yeah, thanks to both you guys. I got to say, this has been just an outstanding panel, because you have provided a variety of just really cool tips that communities can benefit from the use of the video platform, Clay, which through the conversations of these panels communities have not identified that as as useful of a tool as it sounds like you are using, especially like the council follow-up aspect, which is a great way to connect with all segments of your population. Wes, the notion of the 100-day plan, I think, is a wonderful thing that helps to keep your strategic thinking alive and allows people to connect in a regular basis on the progress that communities are doing to keep everybody connected as a community, and probably more importantly, that the decisions that are being made are more strategic and intentional. Both of you guys have kind of acknowledged the value and the importance of recognizing that technology is not going to save the day. It really is a multifaceted approach, and you can never do better than actually talking to people face to face. So both of you have identified just really meaningful stuff that I think is really helpful. The other thing I just want to kind of acknowledge, and probably more on your side, Clay, but certainly with Wes as well, just the global aspect of the perspectives that you're able to glean from your experience on seeing how things have happened around the world, and how do you handle engagement and other kind of municipal challenges, and having that global perspective, given your international involvement and just kind of the resources that ICMA provides to local government managers, is really one of those kind of helpful things that, at least in my experience, and I suspect in yours, and certainly pitch in if you want. Just it changes the way that you think on dealing with local government challenges in a different way than if you never got out of the community. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you think about creativity and innovation, it comes from doing things differently. And what better way than to get out and see something? I mean, California is different than Texas, is different than et cetera. But to go and see a completely different system and way, whether it's maybe you appreciate more what you have, or maybe you learn something that you can do better. And the international stuff, they were talking about sustainability long before us. They've got transportation systems that, arguably are a lot better, that we can strive to emulate in a lot of ways. It's not universal. Just the whole systems, there's a lot to learn. And I've always gotten some out of that every time I've taken a trip, and I'm heading to Wichita, Kansas, and I'm going to learn something there this afternoon.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you. Thanks to both of you for your insights and your ideas and your creative solutions and your approaches. And, you guys are leaders in the profession. And so for you to be sharing those ideas, I think others will really value the thoughts that we share with them when we publish these segments on LinkedIn here within the next week. We do these sessions every week. If either of you have any suggested panelists, I'm always open to folks that would add value to these conversations. I'll follow up with each of you just to get your perspectives on what was this experience like, and any feedback that you can provide on ways that we can improve on it. The whole intent is to just help professionals in local government do their jobs better, and to hear from leaders like you on what you're doing that's making your community successful. So thanks for your time, and really nice seeing both of you. I don't get the chance to connect with you guys nearly as much as I would like. So I really do appreciate this opportunity.
Well, likewise, been fun.
Same here, Matt. Thank you. Thanks, Clay, for it's great to see you.
Likewise. All right, guys, I got to go pack. We'll see you.
All right. Thanks much.
Travel safely. Say hi to Bob Layton.
They'll do it.
See you later.